Hello everyone, and welcome again to the Rutgers Virtual Field Day. My name is Philip Vines and I am a turfgrass breeder here at Rutgers University. And in today's talk, I'll be discussing the use of rainout shelters for the selection and breeding of improved drought-tolerant cool season turf. Drought tolerance in turfgrass is a desirable characteristic. It allows us to decrease water requirements, which is a form of reduced inputs. We can also maintain vegetative cover of turf grasses in drought conditions, and overall as a turf community it allows us to limit our water consumption. Tall fescue has been the primary focus for drought tolerance research in our breeding program here at Rutgers University, and more recently we have expanded to further study the drought tolerance of perennial ryegrass. To do this research, we have used stationary rainout shelters and mobile rainout shelters. So first, I'd like to explain the difference between the two. This is a picture of a stationary rainout shelter. So this is a typical structure similar to a hoop house where we have a covered structure. When there is drought stress induced, we would have a plastic cover over the top of the structure. The sides, as you can see, are able to go up and down. So if we were expecting a heavy rainfall event and we're trying to keep drought stress on the plants, we would let the sides of this rainout shelter down, and the end caps are the same way. They can be rolled up or let down. So the interesting thing about the stationary rainout shelter that we've found is that in addition to imposing drought stress, we also see that compounded with an elevated heat. So we're actually seeing a drought stress and a heat stress on the plants that we're screening in the stationary rainout shelter. Next is the mobile rainout shelter. So the first thing you'll notice here is the actual rainout shelter itself. And in this picture, the rainout shelter is parked in an open position, meaning it is not covering the plants. The plants are actually back further to the right of this picture, where this gentleman is standing. So there is a moisture sensor located here, and when this sensor detects any form of moisture or precipitation, it signals to the rainout shelter to close. And so the rainout shelter will travel along these steel rails or tracks into a closed position, keeping any moisture and precipitation away from the plants when the rainout shelter is active and we are imposing drought stress. In this picture, you'll see our crew establishing plants in the rainout shelter. This is typically done anytime from November through December. Sometimes we could do this early in the spring. Our goal here is to get these plants well established before we impose drought stress. And we're typically imposing our drought stress in the summer months when the temperature is a little high. So for this past year, this picture was taken in mid-December. And so we had, if you recall, quite a mild winter. So we're out establishing these, and we initiated our drought stress early June of this past year. So these plants had roughly 6 months to establish before we stress them with limited water input. In this picture, we see tall fescue. This is approximately 12 weeks of drought stress. And so what you'll notice is that a lot of these plants are brown and simply not performing well under this prolonged drought stress. Several of these plants are nice and green, indicating that they are performing well under drought stress and that they have a drought stress tolerance. So we're able to make selections for drought tolerance, move those individuals forward in our breeding program to help develop drought-resistant cultivars. The interesting thing that we did this past year in 2020 is that we used perennial ryegrass in the rainout shelter. We decided we would see how perennial ryegrass would perform under these prolonged drought stress periods. And it was quite surprising, to be honest, just how well a lot of the perennial ryegrass clones performed. They were quite comparable to the tall fescue. So this is after a period of 10 weeks of drought stress. At this point, we felt we had adequate segregation, meaning that we had a lot of them that were turning brown and several that were still holding their green color. So we were able to go out and make our selections at this time. And everywhere you see a white stake, that is a particular clone that we liked for drought tolerance, and so those were selected and those will be moved forward in the breeding program. So this is just an overhead view of a clone that we selected next to some that we did not. So you'll see it's much darker green, it's maintaining that green color. And if you were there to actually look at it, you would be able to see that it's able to generate some form of growth. And that's another thing we look at, are the ones that are able to still grow a little bit through the drought stress period. We think that's an important characteristic, showing some form of viability within that plant. Just to point out in this picture how dry this particular study is, you can see the cracking of the soil throughout that picture. We do get this quite dry. But again, the real purpose is to identify those elite clones that we can move forward with the ultimate end goal of developing a cultivar that has drought tolerance, so that you guys are able to use those, and it helps the turf community, decreasing our inputs and requirements of water. So with that, I'll conclude this talk on the drought tolerance. I know that was a quick overview. I just wanted to give a little touch into what we do. Here is my contact information. Again, email is a great form of communication to get in touch with me. I'm also on social media with Twitter, if you guys are there. I do post from time to time some of the things that we're doing and seeing in our breeding program. So I like to keep you guys informed that way. Again, I would like to echo the sentiments of others. Thank you all for joining our virtual field day. We're very glad that you were able to participate, and I hope you enjoyed the talks, and we look forward to seeing you guys in person in 2021. Thanks.